Welcome back to the 2012 NFL Draft, presented by Bud Light.
Welcome back, everybody, to New York, where the Cleveland Browns yesterday, they needed a running back. Check, Trent Richardson. They picked a quarterback, Brandon Weeden. They certainly need a wide receiver. But you know what? They need a right tackle. They got Joe Thomas at left tackle. They need a right tackle. And this might be, you talked about offensive tackles, linemen here, Coach. I'm thinking this is the time that the Browns go for a right tackle. The guy who played on a championship team a long time ago that the commissioner will introduce.
To announce the Cleveland Browns selection, please welcome, from Maryland, the 4th overall pick of the 1962 draft by the Browns, receiver Gary Collins.
With the 37th pick in the 2012 NFL Draft, the Cleveland Browns select Mitchell Schwartz, tackle, California.
By the way, Gary Collins was the big receiver when Jim Brown and Frank Ryan, Dr. Frank Ryan, the quarterback, won the championship at 64. Their last. Thought I would throw that in. This is a bit of a surprise, not the position at all.
No, not the position, Boom, but with Bobby Massey from Ole Miss there, a right tackle. Surprised they went for Mitchell Schwartz. You have Jonathan Martin Stanford, who could maybe pick over to right tackle. Colicchio Simile, Iowa State. But you look at Mitchell Schwartz, extensive experience at both right tackle and left tackle at Cal. Obviously, with the Browns, he'll go back to the right side. 6'5", 320 pounds, average athlete, average strength in the upper body. But I like the fact he always kept that frame between the defensive end and the quarterback. I also like the fact that he started 51 consecutive games at Cal in a balanced offense. And you have Alex Mack out of Cal anchoring that line. You got Joe Thomas at left tackle. Now Mitchell Schwartz is going to have to be up to the task. He's going to have to be the starting right tackle for Brandon Weeden, the new quarterback with the Cleveland Browns, and block for Trent Richardson, new running back with the Cleveland Browns. They are completely restructuring that offense in Cleveland, and he's another piece of the puzzle who's going to have to be up to the task as a rookie this year.
Well, it needs to be restructured because, I mean, it was painful to watch. Now, another offense that needs to be restructured, the Jacksonville Jaguars are very quickly on the clock. And, of course, yesterday in the first round, they moved up to take wide receiver Justin Blackmon from Oklahoma State for second-year quarterback Blaine Gabbert. Now what? And this guy could play a little, huh?
To announce the Jacksonville Jaguars selection, please welcome, from the University of Florida, the 9th pick of the 1998 draft by the Jaguars, running back Fred Taylor.
With the 38th pick in the 2012 NFL Draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Andre Branch, defensive end, Clemson.
Well, Andre Branch is an interesting player, Mel. Plays defensive end, outside linebacker at Clemson. Really 1 year of production, and that was this season. He's a versatile football player. I've seen him dropped in coverage. He has some pass rush success, but it hasn't been consistent. I don't see him playing through people. He's more of an edge player. I thought he was more of a 3-4 outside linebacker, but clearly a guy that can play on his feet or in a three-point stance. They're looking for more pass rushers in Jacksonville. Aaron Campman had been a disappointment. They got some sack production from Mincy. Hopefully Branch gives them another force on the opposite side.
I think the Virginia Tech game this year, John, really helped him solidify a position in the first 2 rounds. Had a huge game, 6 tackles for loss, 4 sacks in that one game against the Hokies. I agree with you, a little inconsistent, really didn't take it to that level, that second first-round level until this year. But a team that's desperate because a few years ago they reached for Derek Harvey out of Florida in the top 10. He didn't pan out, and that's what happens. It's that ripple effect. You miss on a player, it haunts you down the road, then you got to use a second-round pick here on a guy who you need to give you a pass rush when you could have had a corner, which you need as well. So they passed on a corner, passed on a Janoris Jenkins, passed on a Trumaine Johnson from Montana, passed on a Dwight Bentley from Louisiana Lafayette to take a defensive end who they hope can play like he did in spurts this year at Clemson.
Well, the new head coach of the Jaguars will be Mike Mularkey, so his second chance as a head coach some years ago, the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. So that's where Jacksonville is headed these days. Of course, new ownership and everything else. Now, on to Carolina, who have a whole new hope. With Cam Newton at quarterback going to year 2. They won 2, then they won 6 games last year, scored over 400 points, which was a team before that was dreadful in offense, but it's not Carolina. I have the wrong card. It's the Rams because they have every pick in the second round.
With the 39th pick in the 2012 NFL Draft, the St. Louis Rams select Janoris Jenkins, defensive back, North Alabama.
So here it is.
Well, Jeff Fisher took Pac-Man Jones a few years ago when he was the coach of the Tennessee Titans. Chuck Cecil down in St. Louis now. They're going to help this kid. If anybody can help Janoris Jenkins, Fisher and Chuck Cecil can do it. This is an experienced, very versatile corner. He's got great ball skills. I think he plays bigger than his size. I've seen him thump people as a tackler. But he doesn't have tremendous size, didn't vertical real well at the combine, and that word reliability is a big word with Janoris Jenkins. Can you trust him to get it together off the field and bring it every day as a pro?
John, you said about the vertical. A lot of these guys did. Morris Claiborne, 34.5-inch vertical. Patrick, 35 vertical. Jenkins was 33.5. You're right, didn't do what was expected, but he played well at Florida. He had 8 career interceptions in the SEC with the Gators. You see him coming up and aggressively making those tackles that you have to do, supporting the run in the NFL. A top 15 talent. If there wasn't off-the-field concerns with Janoris Jenkins, he would have been up there with Stephon Gilmore, maybe even in the top 10 overall. 5'10", 193, but he is fast. He can flip the hips. He can turn and run with any wide receiver in this pass-happy NFL. Carolina had a big need at corner. They have a big need at defensive tackle, which they'll address at some point moving forward. This is a team that in the first round, you think about productive players. They got one in Luke Kuechly, middle linebacker. Now you can think about moving John Beeson outside. Janoris Jenkins this year at North Alabama also was an outstanding punt returner. So it gives you that ability in the return game to make a lot of big plays as well.
As you point out, John, when he was at Florida, he played guys that went 4-6 overall last year, and Green and Julio Jones playing DB against them. So this is what the Rams have done, and remember they got another pick here in the second round. But so Janoris Jenkins, fellas, he's in St. Louis.
Well, Boom, that was part of the reason. Well, Boom, basically the Rams had 3 second-round draft picks, 33, 39, 45, and with the 3 second-round picks, they knew that they could take a gamble on a player as talented as Janoris Jenkins. They needed help at the cornerback position. They felt like Jenkins had the type of talent that Morris Claiborne, the LSU cornerback who went to the Dallas Cowboys, who ironically acquired that pick from the St. Louis Rams. The Rams felt that by getting Jenkins, they could solidify the cornerback position, and they feel like they have the coaches in place to do that.
And
more.
Coach Fisher, as Coach Gruden mentioned, was a man who actually felt good about Adam Pac-Man Jones when the Titans took him with the top 10 pick in the draft when Jones came out. And the one thing that Jeff Fisher always told me is that Pac-Man Jones was great as long as he was in the building. As long as he was in the building, Bill.
Well, the problem is that he's not in the building all the time. It's what happens outside the building that's been the problem. Let's hope he gets it straightened out.
Boom.
Well, the gamble is made. You point out Jeff drafted Pac-Man with certainly had some good on-the-field results. Certainly had some not-so-good off-the-field results.
Let's be honest, they needed a corner.
Yeah.
We can talk about all this off-the-field stuff we want. The Rams had no corners. They went out and got Cortland Finnegan. They had 5 of them on IR last year, and there aren't a lot of corners in this draft that can do what Janoris Jenkins does. And I believe in giving people a second chance. These 21, 22-year-old guys weren't all raised like in the same environment. Some of these kids have had a tough upbringing. Let's hope Jenkins